Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we play through the Fallout games. I'm Cameron.
Howdy, Cameron.
Oh, God.
It's me, Cowboy Michael, and I'm here for our new recurring segment where for the first 5 minutes of every episode, I read the titles of Western novels, starting now. 1. Vampires don't wear polka dots. 2. Werewolves don't go to summer camp. 3. Santa Claus doesn't mop floors. 4. Leprechauns don't play baseball. 5. Ghosts don't eat potato chips. 6. Frankenstein. Are we recording already?
Yeah, are you ready to clap?
Yeah. Sorry, I had a moment there.
Look, we haven't talked about this. I haven't brought it up because it seemed personal.
Mm-hmm.
No, I want you to look down. I want you to look at your left foot, and I want you to tell me what you got going on down there.
That's weird. I've got some snakeskin boots on.
Yes, one, would you say decorative, perhaps?
Yeah, and I've got spurs and everything. You can't hear them, I think, but they're jingling and jangling and jingling.
Yep. I want you to put your hand on the top of your head real quick. I want you to tell me what's going on up there.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to describe what I'm feeling as my hands move up my head. All right, there's my sideburns. Mm-hmm. That's normal. And, well, that's... Mm-hmm. Some sort of flat, leathery expanse extending beyond the bounds of some sort of brim, I guess. And, my God, I'm wearing a cowboy hat.
Yeah. It's big, too. I mean, I know people who are listening to this can't hear it, but it's, I don't know, 5 times too big for your head. Somehow the hole is the right size, but the rest of it...
Wow.
Looks like it's made for a giant, maybe. And I want you, just really quick, I want you to look at your equipment slot on your back. Just feel back there, you know, where you attach things like guitars and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, what do you know? There's a guitar back there, a beautiful 6-string named Lucy.
Yep. And what's down at your waist?
God damn it. I've been having cowboy episodes again, haven't I?
Yeah, you have. Yeah. You've been cowboy. I've been able to edit this out for most of the shows, such as Homestuck Made This World, a podcast walking through Homestuck, or Just King Things, a show about reading all the works of Stephen King in publication order, all of which you can find out about at patreon.com/rangetouch. But yeah, I've been editing it out of those shows, but it's getting a little bit ridiculous. I think there's something about Fallout New Vegas that, I mean, we've named him. This being, it's Cowboy Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's haunted me my entire life, and now here he is interfering with my podcasting.
I know. So we're going to have to figure that out maybe in some future episodes. If people have any strategies about how to... can you cover your ears real quick, Michael?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Exercise. To perform a cowboy exorcism. If anyone has any ideas about that, leave it in the comments.
Cameron, when can I take my hands off my ears?
Hey, you're good.
Oh. I'm going to assume you said that was all right.
I think you were listening the whole time. I think you heard me say that.
Say what?
Hold on. All right. This is going to hurt a little bit, but let me do it. Home on the range.
Your mother ropes steers in hell.
I knew it. I knew Cowboy Michael was listening the whole time. All right. Well, if anyone's got any solutions to this or any kind of ways, let us know. But we're talking about Fallout New Vegas here.
No cowboys. Not one in sight.
Weirdly enough, not really. It's not really a game. Despite all you would think in some of the discussion that happens around it, not really, I would say, a cowboy game. Unless you got a 6-shooter at your side. This is another little... Last time we did an episode, I think last was an episode of some side quests.
Yep.
Side quest content that we did, just some little things here and there. We're doing a few more side quests here. Michael, what'd you get up to?
Well, I started out by finishing up a side quest we actually started in the previous episode, because you kind of had to start it to do one of the quests we were doing there. Again, there's complicated quest branching in this game. So the quest was I put a spell on you, which, to quickly recap, is about the fact that the NCR, which is around the Vegas Strip, is primarily based in Camp McCarran, the old airport, and there is a spy somewhere in Camp McCarran who is feeding NCR intelligence to Caesar's Legion. And we were put on the case by both, Colonel Shu, I think, is the one who gave it to us, but then we had to talk to Carrie Boyd, who gave us a quest for the last episode. And Boyd told us that there had been someone breaking into the control tower at night. And she did not, for some reason, think that this was particularly distressing, because she assumed it was. She has some sort of throwaway line where she says, it's probably just like people having an affair or something, like, people are fraternizing or whatever. But it was a place to check out. And so that was what I did, is I went out onto the tarmac and I checked out this tower. I don't know if this might have gone any differently for you at all.
As far as like getting into the tower?
I mean, just anything. This is so I guess I'll preface a lot of this also by saying that these quests that we did are weird to me because they are interesting, but also not fun to play. That's my take. Michael's take there at the beginning. Because this is, it's a good sort of world building. It gives us a sense of like what's going on with the inside of the NCR, right? It lets us know that NCR is having problems. And especially once we figure out what's going on here, the sort of types of problems. But in terms of actually getting to this, it's like, okay, so you go out onto the tarmac, you find the tower. You have to hack into it unless you have the key that I think Boyd gives you. But you go in, there's nothing to look at, nothing to do, and you go out and you wait. And you just wait until night. And you just keep waiting. And you wait and you wait. And if you're me, then you wait until it's like... Because there's no real clear sense of like when this is going to happen. And if you look at your little quest log, it says, just go to the tower at night.
Mm-hmm.
So... I waited until it was like 3:00 in the morning or something. And then off in the distance, just very far away, you can see a little guy walking towards you. And I'm enough of an old hand of these games that I know that if he sees me, something's going to go wrong. So I hide behind like a cargo container or something like that and watch this guy go in. And I sneak in after him. And I can hear him up on the little ham radio talking to his contact in Caesar's Legion. It turns out this guy's a frumentarius, one of Caesar's spies. And he has set up a bomb on the monorail that runs from Camp McCarran into the Strip. And so you get like the immediate kind of goal of disabling this bomb, because I think he says it's going to go off in a few minutes or something. So I run back to the monorail and poke around, and I find the bomb hidden in a vent, and I can disable it because I have, I think, there are a couple of options here. I think one is like repair and the other is science, and I think I get it on the science check, and that's fine. I go back and I report this to Shu, and somehow, this is the key thing, somehow I know who this guy that I just overheard was, even though I never got close enough to like look at him because of the way the game is, scripted. Like I hit the flag, and so my character has the knowledge that this is, I think it's, what's his name, Curtis, who's another NCR dude who was hanging out over on the other side of the airport. So it's someone that you have met before, and it reveals that the NCR is not only infiltrated, but like this person is in the command structure. This isn't just some grunt.
Yeah, and that was kind of the assumption that Boyd had, that that these orders things were being intercepted at such a level that it had to be someone who knew a little bit more than the average, conscript or enlisted person would. I thought it was pretty interesting. So you didn't confront him. You just overheard.
Yeah, I overheard there was a bomb, and I'm like, oh man, so this is the thing. Lucky Nell's thinking is that monorail gets a lot of people onto the Strip where they can gamble, so that's got to be saved immediately.
Yeah, so I like overheard him having this little chat on the radio about, basically saying, yeah, I planted this bomb. And so I went up and confronted him, and he was like, his name he is Frementarius Picus is his like real name. So he's, as you said, like the Frementari or whatever it's called. But so he's got like, he is I think officer also in the Legion. And so like everything that I did happens the same way you did. I don't think that there's very many ways it can go. I mean, there are a few different routes you can go as far as like making these pieces fit together, but this is how it all happens. But what I did find interesting is the conversation I had afterward with Shu, the colonel who was there, or whatever, the commanding officer.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Hey, oh, or maybe this was Boyd. I don't remember who I turned this into actually, but whoever it was like, oh shit, this dude has been in the NCR way before we ended up on the Mojave, and like way before Caesar's Legion were a problem. So how long has the Legion been infiltrating? Has he always been a Legion dude? And if so, like this is a problem. And so I, what's interesting, I guess, is like, just from a pure, because as you were saying, like, from your perspective, who cares in some ways? And what's interesting is like for Tonk at this point, he's aligned with the NCR. This kind of is a big deal. If you're not aligned with the NCR, who cares? Like, whatever. Like, and obviously we've chosen our quests, and I think there's been some community input for that as well. And so, that's partially how we get there. But it seems like this is like almost an NCR internal quest that would not make a lot of sense to do if you were not pursuing that specifically.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't remember if this is a specific one that was requested or if I just pulled it in because I knew we were going to initiate it while doing one of the other side quests, so we might as well tie it off. But the thing that I do think is like helpful about all of these quests is that they give you some of this, set dressing, like stuff to chew on if you're a real lore hound and if you're a person who's into kind of these factions and what their histories are and how they're interacting with each other. There's good stuff in there. It's just not a whole lot of fun to stand on a tarmac and wait when it's not clear when anyone is going to show up at all.
Yeah, learning a little bit more about, of course, Cowboy Michael and his best friend, the Lorehound. You can often see them on the covers of things, walking away from or toward the camera. But yeah, it's a pretty quick quest. Not particularly interesting, other than that kind of lore addition. This feels like we've had a couple of these quests so far that feel like they're designed with like, what can we do with the like Bethesda 3D Fallout toolbox? What can our studio do with that? And ultimately, like, having these people on a calendar or on a clock, I guess, on a timer, and like he only goes early in the morning to do that. That's really cool. But like for me, for example, I started this quest, like whenever we recorded that last episode, and it's been a little while. It's been more than a week since I played, and like there was no way for me to go back and like fill in that info. Maybe I could have gone back and talked to Boyd or something, but I had to like go on the wiki and be like, what am I supposed to be doing? Because the game only gives you like, the node for go to the door. So it's trying to do something it's trying to do a Fallout 2E kind of quest, but within the quest markers and toolbox of Fallout 3's engine and the way that it makes some assumptions about the world. And so that meant that I was like, going to a point of interest, and the point of interest would not do anything unless I had this other kind of context in my head. Which, if you are playing organically and paying really close attention to the dialogue, and you're playing this all in a whack, probably pretty cool. That due to the way that we play this game, that's a little bit different. And I guess for anyone who took any break in between that last quest and this one, there might be some big question marks in your head. That the game doesn't particularly seem interested in solving. But, I think that lends to the, like, New Vegas doesn't hold your hand, bro. Like, that kind of vibe that kind of goes with this. And that is absolutely true in some cases.
Yeah. So, I mean, it did feel like Fallout 2-ish in that way. The idea of, like, waiting for someone to show up. And
Mhm.
even though I can remember doing things like that in other Bethesda games, the way that it gets presented here did feel very Fallout 2-y.
Mhm.
And then, I don't know, then we have the next quest, which is more Legion NCR intrigue. This quest is called Return to Sender. How did this go for you? I ask this because you may want to talk about it first, because
Mhm.
things start happening for me in this quest.
Well, I had a bunch of weird stuff happen here where it was like, so this quest is from you do it at Camp Forlorn Hope, which is kind of like a military encampment that's a little bit closer to the front lines than Fort McCarran. It's kind of like the intermediary supply base kind of thing between that. There's the big, I don't know, like actual front line hanging out, waiting for something to happen. That is the Hoover Dam, and then there's Camp Forlorn Hope a little bit back from that, and then all the way back near New Vegas is Camp McCarran and all this stuff going on there. And so this is kind of like this mission, very NCR focused, and it's very much like help them get their shit together. Like, and so the whole structure of this place of Camp Forlorn Hope is like talking to this dude named Monroe and like figuring out what the base needs and helping them do that. And so he it's like, go talk to the quartermaster, go talk to the doctor, that kind of stuff. That's not actually the quest that we're doing here. The quest that we're doing is kind of a quest within that bigger quest. And you don't have to do that big quest to get to what we did. But it was really interesting that I talked to Monroe to begin with, because I assumed, oh yeah, let's talk to the commander first to start this quest, because I didn't really know one way or the other. And he was like, all right, fine, we'll let these great cons go. Thanks. And I have no idea what they're talking about. So there's some sort of weird flag that has been tripped somewhere where I have completed, or I don't know, something's going on here.
I think because he was the NPC who was in charge of the detail that, do you remember way back in kind of that first like leg of quests before we got to the strip, and we found the cons that had been pinned down in the remains of Boulder City?
Yeah.
I think
is that him?
Yeah, I think he was in charge of that. So I think he was scripted to tell you that after you completed that quest, and maybe you just never talked to him, so he had to deliver that line.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, unfortunately, I think this is just kind of reality of this style of game, especially from this era, is that there are a million NPCs and they all kind of look and sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm not too good at like determining the difference between NCR officers. In my name recall, as we all know, is pretty bad. So okay, that makes a lot of sense though. I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. So he's hanging out there. You end up talking to the radio operator. Do you know her name? I didn't write it down.
Sergeant Reyes.
Yeah. Is it Reyes or Reyes?
Different NPCs say it differently.
Well, later on in the next episode, we'll talk about a NPC who is from the New Vegas area, who has a straight up like New Zealander or Australian accent.
Yep.
So, I'm not shocked that people say things in different ways, but that really got me when I encountered it.
Same.
But anyway, so she says Reyes. I'm going to say Reyes because
okay.
I think that's what it is. Reyes says, hey, I've been talking to everybody, and it turns out that, like, all of the orders that are being sent from ranger station to ranger station. If you remember, we encountered a ranger station on our way to the RepCon facility and something else. Novak. We encountered that, and we talked about that a little bit there. You got killed by assassins there about 400 times.
Mm-hmm.
And so she says, yeah, so what's happening is I can overhear, enemies being called in or enemy locations being called in via the radio. But by the time we send people there, they're long gone. And that means that I believe the Legion has access to our comm system. They can hear us. And so because of that, I want to create a new security system, just a new security code for all the radios so that our comms won't be compromised anymore, which is very reasonable. And she says, the problem is we're so shorthanded and kind of there's so much going on that no one really believes me. And even if they do believe me, there's just not enough. This is so far down the ladder of things anyone cares about that they won't let me go do it. So will you go do it? So that's what this quest is, or the bulk of this quest is going from ranger station to ranger station, kind of in a big circle around the New Vegas region, in order to, or the Strip region, I guess I should say, in order to talk to all these comms officers and change out their security codes.
Yep. And it mostly just means, if you've been to the place before, fast traveling there and doing it, or if you haven't been there before, finding the closest place you can fast travel to and then walking on over.
Yep. And there's some interesting stuff that happens to me here. I do understand the reason people don't like the Cazadors now. I get it.
Yeah.
I figured that out now. I understand. So if everyone was responding to that before, well, I'm on board. Some cool things that just, things I wrote down from going from place to place and seeing it. The ranger station that's closest to Cottonwood Cove.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Cottonwood Cove? Is that what it's
yes.
called? The one that's closest to that, where they're like kind of keeping an eye on the slaving operations that are going on there, and just kind of trying to be aware of if the Legion is going to push out of there. They've got a bunch of Rangers, and we know, if you don't remember from the NCR, there's kind of enlisted troops / conscripts. Those were kind of the same thing for the NCR in some ways. And then there are Rangers who are volunteers, and they're like the elite troopers. And this place, whichever one it is, because they all have like Bravo and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Alpha, Bravo, the others, so on.
The rest of them.
Yeah, the others. They're a bunch of ghouls.
Yeah,
which I really like. I like the idea of like a bunch of ghoul rangers who are like really good at combat and have been doing it for a long time. And they're like, let's join the NCR.
We have so many action points.
We're really good at it. So I thought that was pretty cool. I liked that. For the most part, yeah, I was just kind of bouncing around and looking at stuff and doing these things. Should I finish explaining this quest, or do you want to tag in here?
I want to tag in here because this is when things begin to happen that are going to have long-lasting impacts on every other aspect of the rest of my playthrough for this series.
Mm-hmm.
So you've already mentioned that there was a ranger camp, one of these ranger stations, specifically the one on the way to Novak and Repcon, where we have already been, and where I had been attacked by a whole bunch of legionary assassin squads. The reason for this, of course, was because I, killed Lopez Incolta when I first met him and became vilified by the Legion. And I was thereafter being stalked by assassin squads up until the point that I got to New Vegas. And then I triggered the plot event where Caesar is suddenly like, well, actually, I need to talk to you. So I'm going to give you, your writ of passage. Come to the fort and speak to me. And at that point, all of the assassin squads stopped following me and my reputation with the Legion went neutral.
Mm-hmm.
A thing that did not happen is those assassin squads did not despawn. So when I fast travel to Ranger Station Charlie, there is still an assassin squad there. Now, I don't know if they would have been hostile to me or if they would have, been neutral because of the game state. I don't know how that would have worked out because it's a moot point. I have Boone in my party, and Boone is auto-hostile to any Legion members that he sees. So I arrive at Ranger Station Charlie, and Boone immediately whips out his rifle and kills the assassin squad, the remainders of them. This puts me at a slightly negative reputation with the Legion. The other thing that's important then about Ranger Station Charlie is that there is a Legion encampment just across the road and into the wilderness a couple ways. And they know immediately that I have killed some of their members, and so they start trekking over to Ranger Station Charlie to fight me. And so I kill them all. At which point, the Legion hates me again, and then I'm attacked by a Legion assassin squad. Eventually, I'm vilified by the Legion. So I do all of this quest, but Legion assassin squads are once again coming to fight me. Basically, every other time I fast travel, more or less, a Legion assassin squad spawns in and I have to take them out. This is going to have even more consequences later on, but just so you know, that's kind of how this worked out for me. Basically, very much the same as you, but fighting a lot of Legion assassin squads.
I mean, what's interesting about this mechanically, I get why it exists, because, I don't... I understand. I can analyze why this exists, I guess, is the best way to put it, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, if you make hard choices about which faction you're on, the other faction's going to be hunting you down, and like that feels real. And it certainly kind of feels tabletop RPG-ish. But it seems like it's also probably pretty annoying.
Well,
to deal with.
That's the thing, right? Is that on the one hand, this was annoying as hell to play through, and on the other hand, I loved that it happened. Because it was a real, like, here are some consequences of my actions. Like, I made the Legion, I castigated them in such a way that there were assassin squads chasing me. Those assassin squads did not despawn, and then Boone just rips into them, and here we are. We've come full circle. So as horrible as it was to kind of play through this, I was also like, I did bring this on myself. This is part of kind of the path that I have chosen through this game.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, kind of from a broader game perspective, because if someone doesn't want this to happen to them, then the logical choice, or like the optimal way of preventing this from occurring, is to kind of play both sides until the last moment where you can't anymore, which feels a little inauthentic for role-playing the game in some ways, right? Like, there's no universe in which I would support the Legion unless I was playing an objectively evil character. And I know that there's a lot of work here done to kind of like make them both appeal in different ways. The NCR is not particularly great. You know, I learned a lot in this episode about the NCR and about kind of how it works. We're about to talk about that, in fact, this next stage of the quest. I don't think the NCR is like my utopian organization, but the pragmatic choice between what the NCR does and a marauding group of enslaving, and it seems to be also maybe ethnic cleansers, based on some stuff that we're going to do in the next episode, or that we learn. I feel pretty... I would rather go with the kind of vaguely multicultural kind of shit reproduction of the capitalist state, as opposed to abject fascism. And that doesn't seem particularly, I think there's a way to do that in a theoretical game that makes this more complicated for me. But given the facts on the ground, not particularly complicated for me here. But because I am avoiding this, the outcome that you're at, I am experiencing things where I'm like sitting there and having to grit my teeth while I'm like seeing this Legion guy be like, yep, this is where we keep our slaves. And I know Tonk is biding his time as a character, right? 'Cause this is all role-playing. Tonk is biding his time as a character because he knows at the end of the day he's going to be able to take this Legion out. This is the long game. But if one were seriously like role-playing, like, I think that slavery should be eradicated from the planet, and I think it is bad. You could very easily like go start clearing out these, like Cottonwood Cove, for example. You could just go and do that, and but it would and put you in the situation where you're going to be attacked at every turn for the rest of the game. And so you end up having to make these kind of role-playing and narrative and mechanical choices that end up making it feel like your character is a little bit lukewarm on these things until they finally make the choice, toward the end of the game. So it's an interesting... I don't think there's a perfect solution to this. This is not a criticism of the game in any way. That's a hard thing to manage and put correct, to get all those pieces moving together. And I think they did a very good job of this in 2010 or whenever this came out.
Yeah, so I agree, right? That is why I feel sort of as annoying as this development is, it is also satisfying from the perspective of like the choices I have made and the character that I am playing. Which is not to say that this game isn't just sometimes irritating to me, which is what happens in kind of the back half of this quest when we find out from Reyes that she's getting like really weird reports that she does not believe about things like the Khans having what is like trained death claws, and then like super mutants in the Legion. So she's receiving all of these bizarre intelligence reports after you go around and you give all these new, security codes out, and you come back and let her know. And she's like, hey, here's this other thing. And she explains that she's getting these reports that she doesn't really trust because they're really strange. And she can locate, like, these reports are coming from specific camps. And so she sends you off to verify 3 of these reports from 3 of the camps where you've been already. And you go. And it turns out that the people there have no idea what you're talking about. Nobody put in these intelligence reports. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it has nothing to do with us, basically, at every turn. So you go back and tell her about it. I think that's the next step. And then she tells you to go talk to Hanlon at Camp Golf. Do I have that right?
Yeah, because she says because the way the NCR comms work, which is that everyone radios into Camp Golf. Camp Golf looks at all these reports, compiles them into other reports, and then radios them out. Because of that, that means that there has to be something weird going on in the output system, or the kind of management system, because Camp Golf should be able to call bullshit on some of this stuff, because you go and check, right? You go and check to see if they're trained death claws, right? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? Like, we're not even getting the supplies we need. And you can go and check and see if they're super mutant legionaries, and they're like, well, what are you talking about? There are none of those here. And so because those false reports are going back out, that means that there's something going on in the system that, compiles and then reproduces these. And that's all happening at, I get the Ranger Command, I guess is what it is. Ranger Command at Camp Golf, which is slightly different from NCR Command, weirdly enough.
Yeah, so you head on over to Camp Golf, which used to be a golf course and resort owned by Mr. House. And there's a neat little thing in the lower floor. I don't know if you would have seen this, Cameron, where you can go into one of the side rooms and you can see a portrait of Mr. House when he was, in his glory days. And it's clearly based on this famous photograph of Howard Hughes standing in front of an airplane. Did you see this?
No.
Oh, well, it's neat. It's there.
Strange.
The weird thing that happened here for me is I show up and I'm supposed to speak with this guy, Chief Hanlon. I go upstairs. He is standing in a room drinking a Nuka-Cola, and every time I try to talk to him, he's like, he has some just line that he repeats where he's just like, wait until I'm out on the balcony to talk to me, essentially. He will not talk to me right now. And so I wait a couple hours to see if he goes out on the balcony. No, it's nighttime, so he goes to sleep. And so I wake him up from his sleep, and he says, talk to me when I'm on the balcony. And then he walks out of the bedroom where he is sleeping down the hall. And I'm like, oh man, maybe I, waited just enough time and he's going to walk out onto the balcony now and start his day routine. No, he walks down the hall to another bedroom where he goes to sleep again. So I wait even longer, and eventually it's the morning, and I go out on the balcony, and you can go out and talk to him finally and ask him about all of these reports. And eventually, you can talk around it, but you can get to the point where you outright accuse him, because you can talk with him through all the things that you just said. Here's how the reports come in, here's how they get compiled by me, so on and so forth. And you get to the point where you can, at least for me, I don't know if this maybe worked out differently for Tonk for various reasons, I could just outright accuse him, listen, I know you're the one who is manipulating these intelligence reports. Why? What is your goal? And then he's like, well, you should talk to me about that inside.
Yes. Let me do a little scene change here. Yeah, it's really, really weird.
This is just so irritating.
He's talk about a cowboy guy. This is cowboy man. He also says something that when you're on the balcony that he said to me, which I thought was pretty interesting, is that out west, they've drained all the lakes and reservoirs.
Yeah, he mentioned, because he's talking about how from Camp Golf they can see Lake Mead, and he thinks that that's like it's sort of unsettling to him. He's not used to seeing this much water, which is interesting because I mean, it suggests that the NCR is not doing a particularly good job at managing their resources, but also just sort of raises some questions about like how are they emptying lakes and reservoirs? Like, how much water are they using? Is this just like a total, like, are they just re-irrigating the entire West Coast or something? Like, what's happening?
I don't know. Oh, and they're, who knows? Ultimately, it's a kind of a big question. But I guess maybe if we think about Vault City and that kind of aesthetic of Vault City, maybe that doesn't go away. The kind of greenery in the wasteland, and so and so it could be that a big chunk of the NCR just straight up looks like a golf course.
Yeah,
and they're draining it all. But also the population of the NCR cannot be that big, right? It can be a couple 100,000 people, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it can't be more than 1 million people, right?
Right. I mean, there's not that many people left in this world, so
yeah. And so if that's the case, then like, how much water can they actually be using? Even if they do make every single piece of like place where a human being lives into a green space, how much water could that use to drain all the stuff? So it's a good bit of like flavor, I think, and a good little bit of like what someone might say, but it really makes you think like, what's going on out west with the NCR? Like, and maybe they're a little bit more desperate pushing east than we think. It could be a little bit more of a resource war than anyone's letting on. But yeah, he goes inside and then he explains to you that he's been beefing all these things up and falsifying all this information because he wants to get out of this like eternal war that's happening in New Vegas. Very, very timely.
Yeah. I was thinking as I was playing it, I was like, "Damn, the timing here."
We were recording this the week that the United States, at least, began the operation of leaving Afghanistan.
And very clearly, that is what this is intended to evoke. I mean, not the actual leaving of Afghanistan because it hadn't happened, but the criticisms of this war effort that had been made since it began, which is that there's no clear end objective, and it seems like it's designed to just go on forever.
Yeah, 100%. Like this feels like because at this point, we've been in Afghanistan for 8 years, 9 years,
8 or 9 years.
And we'd been in Iraq for 7. And I mean, these were common. I mean, these were common complaints among people who protested the war at the time. But that what is the end goal here, and what is the end state? Big question mark. But certainly, by the time we're getting to 2010, and we're getting to big discussions in the media, in particular, about civilian death numbers and what the end state of this thing is going to be. There was a lot of discussion with the election of Obama that, we're going to be leaving Afghanistan. And, that had not taken place yet. So, this is not us like jamming politics or jamming commentary where it doesn't belong. This feels very much of a type of response that was already pretty prevalent in 2010 and has only been more of an outspoken political position since then. And exactly as you're saying, the things he is saying are things that feel ripped out of the commentariat at the time. Quagmire. What'd you do here? What'd you do with this guy?
Well, so he, explains everything. He's like, he talks about, he basically wants to undermine morale of the NCR so much that like troops will not want to come out anymore. Because this is the other thing that he brings up, that, people come out here and they die. And then the NCR is just conscripting new people, or like opening up more avenues to get people who don't know really what they're signing up for out here into the shit. And so... he just like he wants this to fail essentially, and Lucky Nell thinks this over, and she can sort of see his point. But if the NCR leaves, then who's going to come to New Vegas to gamble? So she decides she's going to turn him in, and he's like, "Well, if you're going to do that, you should best get a ranger to make it official." Did you make the same choice?
I did. Before we talk about that, I want to talk really quickly about what his strategy is here.
Yeah.
Because it is that. But he specifically wants to create the conditions where the Legion feels like they can make an attack, and the NCR will lose. He specifically is not just trying to he is both trying to knock down morale, as you're saying, and to create a condition where Caesar will attack. There will be a bad defense on the part of the NCR, and then the Rangers will essentially do a piss poor job of covering them, and then they will be so defeated that they have to retreat out of the Mojave. And he specifically says that because he says, whoever the commanding officer is on the dam, I'm blanking on the name there, but he says, I said, I know that person will do exactly the opposite of what I say. And so I said, put them on the ridge. So they put the troops in the kind of like on the dam itself. That is an unwinnable position. Because I did this manipulation, I have set the kind of maneuvers here that we cannot win this fight. And by flooding the battlefield with bad information, I am making sure, it's like chess-like, making sure that every NCR position here is an unwinnable position. And then ultimately kind of having to retreat from that. So a lot of thought, I think, going into this. Whoever worked on this and wrote this really had a lot of thinking about what would this kind of getting in the character perspective of what would be the options available to this commanding officer who's ultimately performing seditious acts. This is revolutionary, or not even revolutionary. It's just anti-command in some ways. And so I thought that was really interesting that like from every perspective, it was this kind of negative thing, but I did the exact same thing. I said, all right, let's make it official. And I went out to get a ranger, and I thought this was pretty interesting too, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah. So you step out of his office, and as soon as you do that, the door slams shut and it locks, and you can no longer open it. And he begins to address the base over the PA system, where he basically explains, I don't think he explains explicitly what he's been doing, but he sort of talks about like how he's become disenchanted with the war effort, and this has made him do things that, maybe don't seem to be that wise. And, it could be a really affecting moment if, and here's where things get messy for me again, if I could hear him, because I can't unless I'm standing right.
The music is is it because the music is extremely loud?
Yes. And I have subtitles turned on, and there's no subtitles for this. So I can hear him talking. I can barely understand him. And the other thing about this character, by the way, is that he talks a lot. Like in one of the first things you can say to him when you talk to him out on the balcony, because he takes forever and he has this real slow, folksy demeanor. And you can say, like, man, you really love the sound of your own voice or something. I didn't choose that, but that's one of his character notes, is that he talks a lot. And so he's talking and he's talking and he's talking. And he also seems to maybe, like, he pauses. It's like the game will have him deliver a line, and then you kind of sit there and it's like, is he done? And then he keeps going. And then you have to sit there, and then he keeps going. And you sit through all of this. And then eventually what he does is he shoots himself in his office. He falls on his own sword. At which point, you can open the door, and there's a guard who's standing just down the hall from him, who will run down that hallway and like poke their head into the office, and they'll be like, oh, Chief Hanlon, why'd he do it? Which is hysterical, because he just explained why he did it over the PA system.
I did not get that. I had a ranger run in and then immediately turn to me and say, pretty great that the Kings are doing great in Freeside or whatever. Like, did not even react whatsoever to what occurred there. So you got better than I got.
This gets worse for me, because I noticed that he has a really fancy gun that he used to shoot himself called the Ranger Sequoia, and it's lying on the ground next to him. And it's still marked as owned, even though he's dead. So the second I pick it up, every ranger in this base becomes hostile to me. So I get killed. And it takes me back to just before I started on his stupid little monologue. So I have to reinitiate that and listen to the whole thing again. And well, actually, the first thing I try to do is on this second time, I am in the office with him, and you can kill him yourself. Like you can just be like, I'm just gonna you betrayed the NCR or whatever. You're gonna die. And I decided to see what happened if I did that. And this was funny because he's sitting behind his desk and I can threaten him. And then he's like, well, I don't think you should threaten me. And I can be like, I'm going to do it anyway. And then I immediately, the dialogue ends. I immediately pull out my gun. I fire twice into his face and he explodes into a ball of intestines. Like they just all these gobbets of flesh just land in his office chair.
Jeez.
It's it was incredible, just how sudden his explosion was. But for whatever reason, this counts as failing the quest. And then also it made all of the rangers hostile to me, so then I died again. So on my third time, I listened to his thing, and then I have to go into the office and I use a stealth boy to go invisible so I can take his stupid gun. And it's a cool looking gun. I don't have any ammo for it, so I'll see if I can find some later on to see if this was worth it. And then I have to sneak out while I'm still invisible, and that's how this quest ends for me. Or I guess I go back and no, you don't actually tell Reyes, do you?
I don't think you have to.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe you do.
Yeah. So I think it just ends here.
Thinking about it. Yeah, I'm trying to look if there's anything else. Yeah, that's what happens. So it's an interesting quest, I think. I think I like these quests about learning a little bit of what's going on with the NCR. And I do think it's really interesting that he basically says, yeah, we are just shipping troops in here to die. And a huge number of them are conscripts. Mm-hmm. They're being drafted and they don't want to. So there's, just as much Vietnam in this. I think this is being exploded beyond just one conflict. I don't want us talking about its kind of resonance with the contemporary to detract from that. This is about a particular type of conflict. And the U.S. has just happened to have been and engineered several of these. But yeah, so I think it's interesting. There's no real repercussions for this in the immediate time zone or the immediate moment of well, that seems bad that you were being sabotaged from within by one of your most important commanders, and it seems like the Rangers don't have a commander now. That seems to be a problem since they're your best troops, but that's not really followed up on. And we just have this last quest.
Yeah, this quest is called Why Can't We Be Friends? And it takes us all the way back to kind of the starting area, but also not the starting area. Really, the area just beyond Good Springs, because you'll remember that Good Springs was having a problem with the Powder Gangers, a bunch of convicts from the NCR who had escaped their prison and were now just kind of, roaming the wasteland and thieving and marauding and things like that. So if you head north of Good Springs just a little bit, you can find Vault 19, which appears to be a parking lot. And then there's a grate in kind of like a tool booth kind of thing. And you go down there and you go into Vault 19. And if you wander around, you will find the Overseer's office. How did this go for you, Cameron? Because I think I kind of intentionally fudged this.
I also, so I hate this quest. I think this quest is bad.
Yeah.
I think this quest should not be in the game, and not for any content reasons, but it does not feel like it belongs in this game as far as what you are able to do in it, and I think it makes the game actively worse. So I think it would be, mod the game, just pop this bad boy out, and don't even have to think about it. So you go in, you find all these convicts who have escaped in the vault, and they are the convicts who one of them, his name is David something.
I'm not sure. The one I talked to first was Samuel Cook.
I don't know why I was saying David. Samuel Cook. He's the person who orchestrated the NCR prison break where the Powder Gangers got out originally. So there's all tying, and that's really cool. That's all tying back together. I was presented with two options here. Maybe there are more options. I just didn't get access to them. And I actually ended up having to look at the wiki and see what's up, because they're in this vault. And Samuel Cook says, hey, we need to we we need to be able to do like XYZ stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I need you to go to the bottom of this vault and kill some fire geckos. If you remember all the way back in Fallout 2.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to go down in the basement, kill some fire geckos so that we can go down in the sub-basement of this vault in order to get sulfur so that we can make some explosives.
Mm-hmm.
And like have the ability to fight back because we're just hanging out here and hiding right now. He's got a buddy who like also helped organize some of this, and there's a bunch of powder gangers here, or escaped convicts. They're not powder gangers, I guess. And he's got a buddy here, and his buddy's like, I hate this dude. He's like, all I want to do, like, we made some mistakes. I just want to go back and surrender to the NCR. I do not want to triple down on, like, being a marauding gang. This is so much worse than what we thought was going to happen. I would rather just, like, go back and try to make good on this. The game does not give me any way to embrace that guy's point of view. So I look on the wiki, and I was like, this is really weird that I can only do this quest one way. So I look on the wiki. You can find C4 in this vault. If you take that C4 and you go down into the sub-basement, you can find a big ball of sulfur, and you can stick the C4 on it and blow it up, which gets rid of the sulfur, which means you can kind of swerve away from what Samuel wants you to do. You can kind of take the quest in a different way. Tonk is an explosives expert. He's good at it. He's got like more than 50 skill points in it. But he doesn't have any science knowledge. So he can't do this. So the only way to do this quest for Tonk is like following this guy who wants to blow people up and like hates the NCR, which Tonk is all about. So I just quit this quest and didn't do it. My other strategy, I was like, okay, logically, if this one guy, all he wants to do is get rid of the leader, I should be able to just fight the leader and kill him, and then that solves the problem. Nope, that aggroes everybody. And so this is one of the I think the first time that I have just legit not done the quest because I think the outcome that Tonk has available to him as a character is worse than just leaving it uncompleted. Like in the world. And they just live in that vault forever. So that is what happened. Did you swerve harder than I have?
No, so I show up and I talk to Samuel Cook, and he lays everything out to me, and he tells me about this other guy that you already mentioned, his former friend, Philip Lem, who's the one who wants them...
Philip.
Yeah, he wants them to surrender to the NCR. And I never meet him, because I'm talking with Samuel Cook, and he's like, it doesn't make any sense. We escaped from prison. Why would we surrender to the people who imprisoned us? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'll go down and take care of your fire gecko problem. And so I do that. And then I come back up, and I'm like, hey, I took care of your fire gecko problem. How's that? And he's like, that's great. We can make some stuff now. Also, we kind of don't want to be on our own anymore. Could you go talk to the Great Khans and see if we can join them? To pause here just a little bit, one of the things that I kind of leaned into in this part was the fact that this is a very unusual vault design that you can potentially never figure out. That is to say, Vault 19, and this is like not stuff that really shows up in my playthrough, it's just stuff that I know from having played before, like it was one of the experiment vaults, and the experiment was that they separated everyone into two groups, red and blue, and like there were two overseers. Basically they had two populations within the vault, and then, you know, because this is Fallout, what happened is they might have like pumped hallucinogens into the air system or something like that. Anyway, and then like the tensions of being separated made people turn on each other, and then it devolved into a full civil war. And the sort of like there's like a quote unquote joke happening here, I think structurally, where you have Sam Cook in one of the overseer's offices and then Philip Lim in the other overseer's office. And when you come in, there's like, you know, two signs like pointing in opposite directions, and each one says overseer's office. But I remember the first time I ever played this game coming in and thinking like, oh, that just means that there's an overseer's office. Like there's one overseer's office, and it's, you know, in either direction. It doesn't matter which way I go. So you can just like, and like, I guess what is striking to me about that is that you would never expect for there to be two overseers' offices. And you can play through this in such a way where the thought would never occur to you, because all of the like notes that you find on the terminals are just people who are, slowly going crazy because of the vault experiment, and they're just talking about the reds and the blues, and it's like, yeah, whatever. So yeah, it ends up being a sort of weird and boring quest in that way, precisely because it does not railroad you into what the interesting part of it is, which is that you have this decision to make. And then, as you point out, that decision may not, in fact, be terribly interesting or even in itself straightforward in terms of how you can choose the other side of this. But anyway, Sam Cooke is like, let me go see the Great Khans and ask if we can join them. So I bop over to where the Khans are hiding out, which is in, I think it's called Red Rock Canyon. Which is really cool looking, I will say.
It's awesome. Yeah, we're going to talk about it in depth next episode, but yeah, I agree. It is excellent.
Yeah. So I go over there and I meet the Great Khans, and in particular I meet Papa Khan, who is the leader, and I'm like, "Hey, can the Powder Gangers join you?" And he's like, "Well, sure, they have to undergo our initiation rite, but otherwise, like, I don't see why not." Or, I think there's maybe some speech check that I had to pass. But it's a conversation. It's really trivial. And then I go back and I tell Sam Cooke, like, "Hey, guess what? You can join the Great Khans." And he said you have to undergo the initiation ritual. And he's like, "Well, that's good, although I really don't want to do the initiation ritual." And then the quest ends. That's how that sort of closes out. So that's the end.
Huh. Well, that's certainly interesting. Yeah, I think this is just a clunker. Just no good. It's the chapter to skip in the book. This is when Drizzt Do'Urden and Wolfgar, they're just traveling across the countryside for a whole chapter. Skip this bad boy. Not good. That's what we did this episode. What are we going to do next time, Michael?
Next time, we will be dealing with the Great Khans more extensively and just sort of seeing more about what they're up to and what we can do with them or about them and their presence in the wasteland.
You can go to twitter.com/rangestunts to see everything that we are up to, and you can go to youtube.com/rangetouch, where you are right now, to look at other videos that we have. If you go to patreon.com/rangedtouch, again, the link is down in the description below the video that you're watching. You could pay us $3 a month and get access to an RSS feed if you want to listen to this as a podcast rather than watching it on YouTube or listening to it on YouTube. You can also listen to our other shows, such as Just King Things or Homestuck Made This World. Just King Things is all about the works of Stephen King that we are reading in publication order. We're in the early 1980s right now, so if you've got any nostalgia for Stephen King, come check out what we've been exploring. And Homestuck Made This World is our most recent show, and we are going through Homestuck and talking about it. If you don't know what Homestuck is, well, you're not alone. And we'll tell you all about it. So if you've heard about it in the mysterious, whispered world of the internet underground, we're trying to make that explicable and useful for you. So you can go to patreon.com/rangedtouch in order to check all of that out. And you can just go to rangedtouch.com in order to see everything that we're doing. And you can buy a t-shirt if you want to buy a t-shirt. We got some t-shirts going on over there. We don't have too much future t-shirt yet, and we're looking for ideas, of course. So if you got a great idea for what we should slap on a t-shirt and charge you money for, leave that down in the comment below. Michael, you got a big question for people in case they don't have a t-shirt idea?
If you had to write a Western novel, what would the title be?
Very interesting. All right, well, we'll be back in 2 weeks with an episode about the Khans, the Great Khans.
Until then, folks, war never changes, but Fallout sure does.
Everything changes.